As the OTAs begin, what Josh Allen thinks of his not-so-new play calling, plus why a guy like Von Miller is the best kind of mentor, and why it truly is just business for Jordan Poyer. All that's coming up on this week's edition of the Buffalo Plus Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus Podcast presented by Buffalo Plus. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. We're talking Bills OTAs, getting into everything. But before we start, please be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. And if you're feeling extra nice, please be sure to share it with some of your Buffalo Bills Mafia friends. All right, the Bills with OTAs once again this week. I was in Orchard Park, but let's get started with some of the things. Mike, I feel like we've talked so much about so much continuity on this Bills team, but there's a little bit of some changes as well. Ken Dorsey being quarterback coach, promoted to offensive coordinator. What does that mean going forward for this team, especially now that some of that light on-field work begins?
Yeah, well, we know Josh Allen is comfortable with it, right? He endorsed Dorsey. The guy's been around. I mean, you see them together. I was thinking how different it would be if it was a totally different offensive coordinator, a guy from outside the organization. It would be almost jarring to see that other voice in his ear. But you see Dorsey. It's funny, though. I think about physically, he and Daboll together are.
Dion talked about that. Yeah,
it's just very different. But
they're the number 10.
Yes. But we're very
fat face and a skinny face. Are we going to call Dorsey skinny face?
Well, I mean, in relative terms, yeah.
I mean,
By the way, I also got a Daboll take I want to have for you guys. But in terms of this, because there's a comfort level there, because he's been in the room, because there's obviously been a connection between the two, I think that, to Jenna's point about there's always been the continuity, that's good. But Dan, I also like the fact that it's a different voice, not exactly the same guy. And no matter how much, they follow the chain of command, and they respected Brian Daboll, Ken Dorsey's going to do it his own way.
Yeah, to me, it's slightly concerning. Nothing has changed on my concern that Ken Dorsey's going to be calling plays. That's my number one concern. He just hasn't called plays. I love that he's been a quarterback. I love that he's been in those situations, that he's played in college-level big games, has played in the NFL, all of those things. But Josh Allen even talked about how at OTAs, he wants to hear him in his ear. That he's only had one voice really in his ear most of his career, that being Brian Daboll. So it's something that it's one of those little itty bitty things that, like, if you were to change something at work, whether you get a new software program or whether like something gets updated, even when your iPhone gets updated, you're like, what the, wait a second. I know how to use an iPhone, but wait, why is this different? I think that is where these OTAs, it's so funny. This team is such a well-oiled machine, and this team has succeeded so much offensively. And we're trying to like nitpick things. Like, remember we joked around about how, right, Jenna? No, remember we used to joke around about like, we're sitting here like, who is the Bills' number 4 and 5 wide receivers? It's like, we used to argue who their 1 is.
Yeah.
And like, now we're sitting there like, what the problem is this year? Ken Dorsey may have a different voice in Josh Allen's ear than Brian Daboll. Like, that's where this is. And like, that's just what my one thing is, that, that's what they have to get used to. Change is good. Sean McDermott even talked about it at the combine when I was there in Indy, that this is where you're starting to see, the scouts are kind of done for the year. They now, he talks about how they get to sit back and relax. And this is where Sean McDermott and all the coaches say, this is our turn. And it kind of works some kinks out because there are a lot of new coaches, and there are new coaches and new rules.
Going off of Dan's 7-minute point,
What's up?
I will say, like, you knew the changes were going to come. With success comes coaching changes. I think it's great that Ken Dorsey has been a guy that has Josh Allen's trust, because we talk so much about how important that piece is, how OTAs is about building that trust, building that camaraderie. And I think it's good to see Ken Dorsey already have that relationship with Josh Allen. But I'm curious, too, how it will go in terms of calling the plays. And like Dan mentioned, the fact that Ken Dorsey hasn't done that. We expect this offense to just pick up and go from where they were a season ago, but we haven't seen what Ken Dorsey will do. Now, obviously, OTA is a huge part of laying that foundation, having Ken Dorsey in Josh Allen's ear, all of those things. And, Brian Daboll is not in Buffalo any longer. Deion Dawkins was asked about the changes between Dable and Ken Dorsey. And I loved this answer. First of all, he did mention the height differential and maybe the weight differential as well. And then he says, but they're both masterminds of the offense. So we've been able to see that with Dable. We're still waiting to actually see those results on the field with Ken Dorsey. Obviously, he has an immense amount of talent in the pieces to have a high-powered offense. But right now is kind of the waiting game to see, Mike, all right, how will this actually shake out?
Yeah, and I also think we add the element that each year is different. And if you look at last year, while Josh is still Josh, boy, the offense went through a lot of stuff during the year. I mean, there were moments where it was like, Diggs wasn't as, quote, dominant, and how were they spreading the ball around, and do they want to run it more, and all that was happening with all the same coaches. So if we accept that there's going to be a level of that, no matter what, whether it's a change or not, that seems to happen. And I do believe with Aaron Kromer in on the offense, a guy who has been an offensive coordinator, I do think sometimes we forget that while there is a voice and there is a guy calling the play, really the lead guy, it is somewhat of a collaborative process to call the plays. Doesn't mean there isn't the voice. There isn't the guy who is saying this is what it is, but they're in it together. And I do believe that Dorsey has been part of that. Now, it's still different than being the guy and having the other guys with you, but I think that's kind of the way it works. And you've seen a lot of guys who have not called the plays. And the Kansas City Chiefs are a perfect example of this. All these different guys where it's still Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And the other guys are involved. And then, boom, they go on and they call plays in other places and they jump in. So I do think that's part of it. But the fact that Dorsey has been there with all those play calls and the way they use it, and there's a comfort level with the other players, will help him. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that he's going to do it a little differently. Some things might work better. Some things probably won't.
Yeah.
But when you start with Josh Allen, I think you're in a pretty good spot.
And we're talking about all of these. We're so focused on who's calling the plays. And maybe this is me being naive, or maybe listeners or, guys, people that are watching. It was kind of eye-opening when it hit me at the combine, when they talked about the relationship between an offensive coordinator and a quarterback's coach or any position coach. I thought Dable and Josh hung out every single day, and that wasn't the case. Josh had all of his meetings individually with Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
I guess I just assumed that the OC was in on all of the position meetings too, and that's not really what it is. Obviously the OC oversees everything, but I thought that Josh and Dabes were together every day, and they were obviously at practice and things like that, and maybe more offensive team things. But that's where Dorsey, Josh said, I haven't talked to Dorsey as much. That's where it's different. He was seeing Dorsey every day, and now he's going to be seeing Joe Brady every day. Yeah. So we're talking about who's calling the plays. That's the big change. It's also a change every single day as to who Josh is seeing every day, and that's a new face. And what Joe Brady does or brings is still to be determined. Look, what he did at LSU and what he did with Joe Burrow is incredible. It didn't go so well in Carolina. Now, I think Matt Rule is part of the problem over there in Carolina, so I'm not going to put that all on him. But to sit here and say he had success at LSU, and like I said, he had the Saints background. It's just there's more than one piece to the change. By moving Dorsey, you moved a couple of chess pieces at the same time, which will also affect Josh. It's a new voice in his ear, but it's also a new person that he's seeing every single day, and is breaking down. A majority of his work is going to be with Joe Brady, and that is who I think we need to see that comfort level. Apparently, they love to joke around about The Office. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
But that level of trust is something I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that there's another layer of change with this offense and Josh Allen.
Yeah. And also on top of that, that is really where you look at OTAs to kind of set that foundation, like we talked about, that relationship. And Josh was asked quite a bit about Joe Brady. He said he liked his firepower, all that stuff. And then, of course, he said, he's also a huge fan of The Office, which that I love. And I think it sounds silly, but I think that is a big piece of, having someone around and just getting along. Just can you get along in your day-to-day relationship? And then also building on top of that. I'm not saying, Dan, you need to be kumbaya singing, songs around the fire, but I think sometimes you listen more when you respect someone and you like someone.
Yeah. By the way, was
Agree.
there ever an episode where Michael Scott was singing around a campfire? Because that would be awesome if that was the case. But I don't remember if
Michael sang quite a bit. He always
he
sang the
did.
happy birthday. He sang the high pitch on the happy birthday. My point, Jenna, is when you're talking about like respect one another, we won't know until, pardon my French, the shit hits the fan. Like
Correct.
I still remember when Brian Dable was on the sidelines, I believe in like 2018 or 2019, and like there's like cutaways of after Josh throws an interception and like Dable's in his face screaming and yelling at him. Like that was the level that they were at. They they loved one another. They were very close. And you have to get there. And it's kind of like talk about like the foxhole guy. Like you don't know what it's like until you're facing, you're in the shit and things are going bad. That's when you know you can really trust somebody, like coworkers or something like that. Like when we don't get along, guys, that's when we really know we love one another.
No, we just always agree, Jenna and I do, that it's Dan's fault. But here's what I was going to say to you. This stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. Brian Dable's relationship with Josh Allen evolved. He was with him. I don't care. Offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Let me tell you something. In those first years, they were together a lot. Yeah. They built that trust. Josh Allen is not 2018 Josh Allen. We all know that. He's an evolved player. The same with Ken Dorsey. And you're right. The Joe Brady thing is a big impact. But now we're talking about dealing with veteran tested quarterback Josh Allen. He knows what he likes. Joe Brady knows he's not walking in with some rookie quarterback going, this is what I need to do with him. He's walking in with a guy who's a star in this league and has proved it already. So that relationship is different. Plus, let's give Josh the credit. Not this podcast, like any other one, gives Josh credit because he deserves it, but immensely coachable, team first guy. And Jenna, you talked about the office part of it. It's like going back. It's not quite the same, but like Diggs and Allen with playing, what was it? Call of Duty or whatever game they were playing. And it sounds whatever, but it's like, but that started a bond. I'm not saying that sitting talking about the office creates a bond, but Josh is an approachable, coachable star player. Yeah. And all that will help. But will there be bumps? Absolutely. There'll be bumps. There will be. But when you start with talent that wants to work and team cohesiveness that they have, I think you're in a pretty good spot. Plus, you made the point. I'm not freeing Joe Brady of any issues at all, but Carolina's a dumpster fire and they've gone through so many people. And that doesn't mean he was going to be good, but in those circumstances, it was tough to make it work there. Yeah. So he's probably pretty happy looking at 17 out on the field and knowing he's got the stable coaching staff around him.
Well, you can even think about Brian Dable early on in his career in terms of being offensive coordinator. Obviously, it did not go well in his other stops, but the fact that he had the talent, built the rapport, all of those things. Look, I'm not saying it's going to be the way to build a relationship isn't just through the office, but it helps. Like when you're going to be in the foxhole later on in the months of the season, like it's good to have a rapport and be able to just like talk to someone just as a human being. I think that sets the tone for your relationship moving forward. It's too early to tell, but again, I think it all matters. It all matters how they approach the season, how they get to know one another this season, because there are so many pieces that have been there for so long. Having a guy like Joe Brady be a different voice is huge, but it has to be a voice that also is someone that Josh Allen trusts because where he is in his career. He is not a rookie. Like he knows what he does well. He's obviously very self-aware of what he needs to work on. So seeing how that relationship will grow is something to watch out for because that is the new guy, quote unquote, in the room.
Yeah. And to quote, he's using the phrase, the quote, big New York Rangers fan, Brian Dable, if you saw him on Twitter, that's cool, right? He's embracing the home team.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah,
cool.
It was good.
The picture though, the camera shot was very... They did a disservice to him. Yeah. All I could think about was John Feliciano saying fat face.
Like I said,
face.
Do you think Dable has an angle to get a skinnier face? That's the question.
This isn't good for anyone. I don't care. I don't know where that camera was. It looked like it was 7 inches in front of his face, but like it
But
wasn't good.
my point was with him is the phrase he used all the time. They don't care how much you know until they
Yeah.
know how much you care. And
Yeah.
when you're coaching Josh Allen, he never seems to use his, at least from our impressions, he doesn't use that power. But the dynamic between coach and player is very different now with him.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
Mhm.
He is the guy. And you coach him, you got to coach him hard. I think he embraces being coached hard because he's hard on himself.
Mhm.
But again, he doesn't know it all, but he knows a lot and he's hard on himself. So I think Joe Brady comes in going, this is this guy. This isn't even Joe Burrow when he first got him at LSU here, no matter how talented. This is a guy who's established. So yes, I think there are some really positive things about this. There's going to be hiccups. We'll probably blame it on the changes when it might be something else is the way it goes. But I go back to starting with 17, start with him, and then you're in pretty good shape.
What's your Dable take?
That I was going to say that about the sitting in with the Rangers. So that's okay, right?
Absolutely.
It is because he embraced, but he's a Buffalo guy. And there's not really like that, you know,
Sabres aren't in the playoffs.
Sabres, Rangers, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, it's not like it'd be Toronto, but like, you know, if he was with the, you know, there's a lot of fans that can't stand the Carolina Hurricanes still from the days. You know, you're sitting there, go
I'm sure
Canes.
Dable's been to Bruins games when he was in New England and things like that.
Yeah,
and
but there's a little difference now when you're the fat face of the franchise.
Yeah,
So,
that is true.
yeah.
Okay, wait. Speaking a bit of like off topic, but obviously Josh Allen getting ready for the match coming up. Brady and Rodgers against Mahomes and Allen. And I was kind of thinking about it. I feel like Allen's personality is a lot like Tom Brady's.
Tampa Tom. Yes.
Tampa Tom.
Tampa
Correct.
Tom. Yes.
But like the Tom that we've seen as of lately.
Yeah. Yes,
'Cause
I agree with you.
Yeah. That was just
now that I think about it,
Yeah.
I also go back to the image that you got, Jenna, of Josh just screaming behind the bench in Kansas City.
Yeah.
That reminded me a lot of
yes.
a Brady touchdown, a Brady entrance when he runs down the field and screams at the fans. Like there was a little bit of that let's go in it. And yeah, sometimes I think it's like, you know, whenever anybody compares anything to Brady, I'm like, yeah, there's just Tom Brady. It's like, well, you can find a quarterback in the 6th round. Look at Tom Brady. It's like, yeah, because those guys come up. But Jenna, I think you're right. I think
I think
he's got that intent. He's got that intensity. Very hard on himself,
but self-aware, funny.
Funny and snarky and can get the shots in. Now, by the way, did I read it right? Did Brady take a shot at Allen football-wise, right?
Yes. Saying his results weren't the same on the field, which is fair, but obviously it was. I mean,
but I mean, come on, you want to get into. I'm wondering though.
But that is how Allen would do that. You know what I mean? That
I don't think. Yeah, Allen wouldn't be in a position to do that football-wise to anybody, not yet.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, Dan. You know, golf-wise, can he hang with those guys? I watched. You know, I'm sorry, and Brady. Remember, he holed out in that thing. I mean, this is a different. This is a different. Now, when you're televised for every shot, and these guys, you know, Rodgers can play, and Brady has been through it. You know, all of a sudden, it's like in order to then facilitate the trash talk, you gotta come through golf-wise.
And Josh also talked about too, and like I said, it's very apparent for us coming off the PGA where Mito Pereira just collapses, and we can all say like, yeah, I've been there. Done that shot. That looked ugly. Josh talks about at OTAs, it's pressure when you're sitting there on the first tee. Like, I'm nervous on the first tee when there's a starter and it's like, okay, the ball's in the air. Like, we'll just play that one. Like, here he is with TV cameras on him. It's going to be pressure. And then you're also going to have the needling of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. It is going
relentless.
to be. Yeah. And Josh said, I loved Josh's quote was the best. I don't know if I'll be the best golfer, I hope I am, but I'll be the best trash talker. And he even said, he
Ooh.
goes, I'm going to have to tone it back,
Yeah.
which
I
I
don't know
think
if
is
he'll be.
really good.
I think Brady has got that.
Well, I
edge
think
on
it's
him.
easy to be
It's
the
Brady's
trash
smug
talker.
face.
Huh?
It's just Brady has a smug face.
A smug face. I think it's
Yeah.
the plastic surgery, maybe.
By
Just
the
that
way,
way.
Jenna gave advice to Josh Allen. If you hit a bad shot, just drop another one.
Oh yeah. I was gonna ask how much we'll see the hand wedge, but I was like, I'll not ask
Just
that.
boom, drop another.
Yeah, that's my way to do golf. You get like 2 rounds in when you pay for one. It's
Why
great.
not?
Why not?
Patrick Mahomes is the most boring person out of that foursome, and that's pretty interesting to say.
Yeah, it would
Oh,
be
for
more
sure.
interesting if he had his brother and his
No,
fiance.
His brother was his caddy.
His cat.
Yes.
stop. He'd be doing TikToks. That's so
Who would be
bad.
Josh's caddy?
Dable.
Isaiah McKenzie.
Isaiah McKenzie. That would be awesome.
Oh my
That
god.
would be
Also,
great.
Isaiah McKenzie wearing number 6. All the at OTAs, all the numbers have been different. Boogie
No
Basham
clue.
is now 55. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Jerry,
get
who you
used
Took
to it.
Jerry's number instantly?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry's not getting his number retired.
It was weird. It was weird. All right. Well, we're talking about the defense. So
Yeah.
Von Miller. I was at OTAs this week, and it was interesting for me to see because you get to pick up on, the team really meeting one another, what this team looks like as a group going into training camp. And Greg Rousseau was constantly next to Von Miller, just picking his brain. Von was obviously, not every guy that's older, wants to share their secrets, but that obviously Mike Catalana leaning back. Yes, Mike. You know what, Mike? Actually, this is the perfect example because you are the Von Miller of this podcast. You really are. You teach us, but you can still get out there and play.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think. I think Von Miller's going to be great at this. I think he embraces it. He appears to be. You know what I loved best about Von Miller was the way he talked about playing for the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he talked about his teammates, he's almost like a fan when he talked about the greatness of his teammates.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, again, a first ballot Hall of Fame guy who was phenomenal in the playoffs for the Rams. So to your point, Jenna, I think he's willing. I think he has things to teach younger players.
Yeah.
And it's not, sometimes fans would be like, yeah, bring him in because he'll mentor him for a year. That's great. If you can't play, they'll listen. But in the room, they're going to be like, the old guy can't play anymore.
Yeah.
Or he's not doing it, but he's still taking up the spot. Or it's do as I say, not as I do, because you're not doing it. Von Miller can play.
Yeah.
He can play at a high, high level. And listen to him because he's got this fire. Now, did he get paid in Buffalo? Sure, he got paid.
Yeah.
He still would have gotten paid. He's too
Salary
good.
cap's not real. It's fine.
Right. But if I'm Greg Rousseau, I'm listening to everything. I'm picking up whatever. And I'm not saying Jerry Hughes didn't do that because I think Jerry was probably great at that. But we're talking another notch up here now.
Yeah.
2 notches. I mean, this guy is the most accomplished guy the Bills
Hall
have
of
ever
Famer.
had at that position, except for Bruce Smith. So
I think
I
think this goes well.
Yeah.
Right. I think this goes well off the topic that made a lot of headway earlier on the Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis that he's like, I'm not going to mentor him. And then I was just listening to Pardon My Take, a Barstool podcast, and they had Greg Olson on it. And he was talking about what it was like to be a veteran and a rookie coming in or a younger player coming in. And Greg Olson had said, I always told the guys, gave my number right away. Hey, whatever you need, I'm here for you. You want to watch film with me? You want me to do all this stuff? That's great. I want you to help succeed. He goes, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let you get reps over me. Or all of a sudden it's like, you're going to have to kill me to get my spot. I'm not going to pull myself off the field so that you can get your playing time. He's like, that's not my job. And I thought that was really apparent. And the same podcast, the episode before, Taylor Lewan was on there and talked about how when he got drafted, he was like 2nd or 3rd overall. He DM'd the starting left tackle for the Titans. Like, hey man, can't wait to see you, meet you, go to film. never got a response. Like, yeah, like that's what this NFL is. And so while there's a fine line, and obviously it's because also Von is still in the prime of his, maybe not the prime, twilight. Like he's not at this ceremonial time of
his prime.
Yeah, like he's not just there to coach guys. Like he's there to play. Is he going to play 90% of the snaps? No, probably not. But that's where I think that like some people get so caught up in this mentorship. Like, yes, but it's also not this fact of like, well, I want Greg Rousseau to play over me or anything like that. There is that sense of we're going to do this together. And I think going back to Mike's point, that was kind of what it sounded like when Von talked about the Rams and saying like, I can't believe I got to play next to
Aaron Donald
and Floyd. And this was awesome getting to play with these guys. Like that was where you started to feel that sense of like the team. And I know some people, he sounds like he's not over the Rams. Like people in our comments, like sounds like over the Rams. No, when you win a championship, it's different. And guess what? That was a superstar caliber team. We will look back on that team in 6-7 years and go, holy shit. They had Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Von Miller. And, it's like, so that was a special team. And so I agree with Mike 100%. There's mentorship along with the fact that Von Miller wasn't brought in here to be some teacher and, hold a clipboard and show these guys how it's done. He's here to play.
Yep.
It's a bonus that he's going to be able to help these young pass rushers.
And they better be. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Also, jumping off of that, when you have a guy like Von Miller imparting his wisdom, Greg Rousseau is entering his second season. But also, if you have Von Miller on the other side and Greg Rousseau's playing, like he opens up so much for Greg Rousseau. So like you want him to be as successful as possible because obviously people are going to be game planning for Von Miller. So the opportunity that opens up, you want to see a guy on your team succeed because things will be a little bit different for him and more opportunistic in that way.
Janet, you just said something that I don't believe has ever legitimately been said on this podcast since we've been doing it, is that teams will game plan for a Bills defensive lineman.
That's true.
I'm not being snarky to say that. Very good players, play hard, effective, getting better, all those things. But you're talking about game planning.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be doing that. Now, again, if you had Aaron Donald and Von Miller next to him, it's like, good luck game planning for that. By the way, a brief aside, I still believe the Bills would have beaten the Rams in the Super Bowl where they should have been, but that's a different story. But in this case, I'm saying is pay attention, especially stuff like this, OTAs, mini camps, all that. Listen, watch the way the guy works. To Dan's point, watch the fact that this is the kind of guy who takes all his reps. It isn't standing on the side. Loves to work. Dan, when we talked to Whitfield, when we were at Whitworth, I'm sorry, why I say Whitfield? Whitworth. He's like, it's Von Miller. Like, you got to drag him off the field. And you look at his stats. I don't think he's planning on coming off the field very much. And he said, I got to be out there. That starts when the guy works. So that's what you'll see out of him.
Yep.
And then you take that and apply it when you watch him do that and then go, man, this is the way he works. Because look, I mean, don't we believe that other guys, Trey has been that guy for teammates. They watch the way he works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, they watch the way they work. And then that's how you mentor a player.
Yeah.
Whitworth, said that Von Miller compared it to basketball. He's a high percentage shooter.
Yeah.
It just changes it. And that was one of the things we said was that we always talk about the Bills have so much depth on their defensive line. They rotate them in. That's because they didn't have a Von Miller, to Mike's point. They didn't have somebody to be like, we want you out there 75% of the time. They had a bunch of guys that they're like, 50% of the time we're happy, but like they don't want any of these guys being out. They didn't have any of those guys that you could say, go out there and make a play. And Whitworth said Von Miller can do it on 3rd and long. He can do it on 3rd and short. He can do it on 2nd and short. He can do it all the time. So it'll be interesting.
And it's big
I would say that
for Brandon Beane. If Aaron Donald, if Von Miller's Von Miller, and Greg Rousseau rises,
he comes.
Now it's your free agent guy, and with all that he's done on the D line,
any of them, Mike.
Well, but in this case, if you've got the guy you paid and the guy you picked, and they're both what you need them to be, changes everything. All the other moves they had to make and spending and drafting and all this stuff, man, if those two are those two, this
Mhm.
is a different team.
Also, just a quick point. Greg Rousseau is enormous. Like him next to
Massive.
Vaughn Miller. If you check out the video on the Buffalo Plus
Comical.
page, I think it's called Sights and Sounds from OTAs. Like it is,
Yeah.
it is comical.
I
That's
don't
just
like the number 40. I don't
oh,
like,
it was weird. Taron Johnson was wearing number 7. Like the numbers are
I
they're
don't
really
like 40 for it.
7's a good cornerback number. 40's a fullback.
Yeah.
40 is
Yeah.
a fullback, or he's the wannabe long snapper next to Reed. He's the training camp long snapper to come in to give Reed a break.
Yeah.
It's just not a,
that's weird to me.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
it's not a good number for any sport now that
But
I
hey,
think about it.
guess what? All of a
Yeah,
sudden, it's
actually.
gonna be 40 is going to look a lot better if it's Von Miller,
Tearing
hitting
it
Mac
up.
Jones and whatever else is in
Hey,
front
Mac
of him this
Jones,
year.
best shape of his life, guys. We're entering best shape of his life season.
It's too early for best shape of his
Too
life.
early, guys.
It's only a second
hate it.
season. Also,
Zach
like,
Moss next.
I feel like we should start saying this. Best shape of my life.
This
Who can
podcast is in
prove
the
it?
best shape of its life.
Who can
Buffalo Plus is in the best shape of their life.
we're in the best shape.
it.
I don't even want to say that. We haven't
Like
peaked
that's
yet.
August. That's
Like comment,
August.
subscribe, and share.
We're in May.
Yeah, no, I know. All right, let's talk about this though, because OTAs are obviously voluntary. They are not mandatory, but the mandatory stuff happens later on in the off season. Jordan Poyer was not at OTAs this week. He actually held a benefit for a fundraiser for the Buffalo shooting victims, a golf outing. It was a virtual thing. But Mike, Poyer not being there this week, something to monitor, obviously.
Yeah.
But what do you put your opinion at right now of like something to look out for, or I'm concerned, or where are you at?
The movie Jerry Maguire, when he
Show me
says,
the money.
well, but the other great line there is, that's why they don't call it show friends. They call it show business. It's business.
Ooh.
It is business. And look,
I thought you were going to show me the money.
well, it is obviously, but that, even making the joke about the movie, I think Poyer is saying that, but I think right now it is at an appropriate place. Jordan Poyer has earned a new contract.
Correct.
Fact.
But that does not mean the Buffalo Bills think of it in the same way. Look, if they offered him a 5-year guaranteed deal, like, right, he's taking it, in terms of the money, earning it and then being in that position. Now, I will say they haven't drafted for that spot. They don't have another guy. We talk about, I've mentioned to you guys so many times, you don't pay two guys. You don't pay two guys at a position. But these guys are a little different.
Mhm.
Do they have a plan to keep them together for another couple of seasons? Maybe they do. Maybe they're trying to work that out. I don't know. But I will say that he has the right to be sitting out. No doubt. He's under contract in the final year. I'm sorry if anybody's sitting there going, you have a contract. BS. That's not the way the NFL works.
Yeah.
He's in the final year. But if you're Brandon Beane, you're sitting back. This is the first time Beane's facing this. It's probably going to happen again. It's not quite, Jerry Hughes at the end of his contract's a little different story. Jordan Poyer is what would you guys say, has been a top 5 player
this past season. Yeah.
top 5 player for the whole time.
Yeah, the process. Yeah.
Top
Definitely.
5. And whatever, you got Trey, you got Josh Allen, you got Micah
Josh,
Hyde,
Diggs.
maybe, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
And you might have him higher. Like, I don't know, depending on how you feel about him. Been great, a great Bills player, and they're better on the field with him. But it is business in making that decision. So it's just sort of simmering now.
Mhm.
June's going to tell us how far this extends.
Yeah.
I agree. I'll keep it to Jenna's point where she said, how much of a concern is it? Short and sweet. Not a concern for me. It's voluntary OTAs. Jordan
but this isn't about the voluntary OTAs.
That's what Jenna said. Was it a big
Right,
deal
but
that he
this
wasn't
isn't. This is just, to me, this is the agent and This is Rosenhaus, and
Yeah.
based on his history, this is the signal to me. He's not coming in June unless he's got a deal.
Go ahead.
I'm just not going to assume that. I'm not going to assume what
That's
what
the
a
only
player
leverage a player has.
Yeah.
The
What?
only
Why would
leverage.
you not be there if you?
because I'm not going to assume that he's not going to show up, depending on
It's-
where talks are.
Look in the history of the league.
This isn't a big deal right now. It's not. It's the same thing that when his agent came out and said it, we're all sitting there going like, yeah, this is what it is. It's not a big deal. And don't comment. I don't want to see any comments or tweeting me saying Poyer's a bad teammate. He cares.
No,
he's not
that.
No, because I saw that. And because guess what we do, Jenna? We all tweet out what Sean McDermott says because that's what we are. We're the media. We report on what is said and what is said. And you say Jordan Poyer is not here. And everybody goes, wow, some team player he is. Shut up.
But don't pay attention to those people. They don't understand the way the league works. And I'm saying is, when I say I'm on Poyer's side in terms of as a football player, he deserves it. And his only leverage is to not show up for the mandatory camp. Leverage. Right. Now, again, if they've had real conversations, but I'll put it to you this way. If they've had real conversations and the Bills want to do something, why wouldn't it get done before the mandatory camp? Why wouldn't it? What would be the reason for Brandon Beane to wait? Do you really believe Jordan Poyer is going to say, you know what, I said that, but I'm just going to play it out this year at the same contract? I wouldn't do that if I was him. Yeah, he has every right to demand a new contract. And if the Bills don't want that, then they have a decision to make. But Dan, I agree with you. Right now in May, the voluntary OTA, no, not a big deal. But I'm not even thinking about that. I'm pointing towards June. And when I believe that's when we'll find out what the Bills' real plan is. Do they want to extend this to training camp?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I feel like this could be the breadcrumb that we follow if he does not report for mandatory camp and stuff going forward. I don't think it's anything to be, I wouldn't be like on high alert, but I definitely would monitor that because I think that's important. Normally
Drew Rosenhaus is his agent.
Yeah.
He fired his other agent to get Drew Rosenhaus.
Right. Yeah. So that to me says, show me the money.
Client. Yeah.
Jenna, that shows you he said, show me the money. You don't need to look for it. His agent said it. He's been very clear.
So then why would he go to mandatory camp if he doesn't have a new contract? Because that's the only leverage he would have.
I'm not saying he is or he isn't. I'm just not going to assume what Jordan Poyer is going to do. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to assume that if he doesn't get a new deal, he's going to hold out.
That's fair. And
so here's the other part.
That. I won't.
Here's the other part. If you show up maybe you say, good faith, I'm coming to the mandatory camp. When then nothing happens, then it's end of July and it's training camp and a player not there. So look, at some point, the Bills got to make a decision. I think Brandon Beane's going to pay him. I think he's going to pay him for the year. I think he's going to boost that pay and create a contract because he is a teammate. He is a guy who makes them better. It hurts a lot if he's not on the field. And then they have to make a decision for how long, but it's going to be something to negotiate to make it work to get him back at least happy for this season and maybe 2 years. Like, I don't know exactly how it would work, but you need leverage. This leverage in this league.
Yeah.
And it helps that the salary cap isn't real. So that also is in the Bills' favor.
Yeah.
That's two, baby.
If you're Poyer,
it's a 3-year deal with the final year being like a dummy year. That's what I
look at you, capologist Jenna. I like it.
Well, Jenna knows because all of our contracts have dummy years.
You're telling me. I'm going to show up to 13 Wham and say, show me the money. And then get promptly kicked out. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's fun.
This is, and I'm not rooting for this. Years ago, we lived with this all the time. Rookies would hold out because the way the deals were, and then you had to wait for him to show up at camp. And there was Bruce Smith made a habit of this at training camp, but the world was a different place. This time, teams make decisions this way. I'd just as soon see them sign Poyer to a deal. He's happy. He's still playing. Love watching those two together. They've been great Bills, the best safety combo they've ever had. And I think it would be great. But Brandon Beane has got to make those decisions for the franchise. And it's a big one. It's a big one for him and a big one for Poyer.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I just want to finish this one last thing. Sorry, Jen, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
just the fact of the locker room is on Jordan Poyer's side.
Of course.
Okay. I want to drive home to those. And I know you're saying it, don't listen to those people. To those 5 morons out there, the players in that locker room want Jordan Poyer to be paid. It's not only does he deserve it, it's a respect factor, and that's what players want, and they want the notoriety that the contract they deserve.
100%.
So that again,
and they cut guys with years on their contract. They just release them. You know, look at LaShawn McCoy at the end. It was like, well, it's not guaranteed. Gone. You're out. Like that's what teams do. The team looks at it from their perspective first. That's the way it's been. But it's a real test because Poyer's been that guy. And let's see what ends up happening.
That guy.
Yeah.
You're not that guy, pal.
He is that guy.
He is that guy, for clarification. All right. Well, thank you for listening. And we're watching. Oh, and Dan.
Oh, I just want to say thank you to the person that came up to me at a brewery in Rochester, and we were at Strange Bird, and he came up to me and said he loved the podcast and he loved what we did. And he said, we provided more insight than just the random guy in his basement, to which I said, I actually am in my basement. So is Mike. Jenna's in the penthouse.
Yes.
I'm in the attic.
I just wanted to say, I didn't get your name, and that's really bad of me, but I just want to say thanks for listening. And if you do see us, come up to us and tell us you like the content, and I'll get your name.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure to mention it on the pod. So thank you for the guy that came up to me at Strange Bird.
And had multiple people at the Amerks games. Amerks games were a ball. People coming up saying they were all jacked up about the Amerks. They loved the podcast. They love Buffalo Plus. So
we love hearing that.
Yep. Sounds great.
Going into that, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also just share. I mean, it really, I think there's a lot of Bills fans that would enjoy what we do. We try to have fun with it. So if you think you know someone that would enjoy our videos or our podcast, please be sure to comment if possible, or excuse me, to share. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here for Mike and Dan. I'm Jenna. We will catch you next time on the Buffalo Plus channel. We're also going to be doing our draft of the games that Dan and I will go to coming up.
Yes.
So
got a lot of messages and texts about that. It's very highly anticipated.
When are we doing that? Because
I don't know, because you're going away.
Yeah, but we got time next week. That could be the podcast, and we talk about the road trips.
That's true.
And I officiate you two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that.
We need to work out all the rules.
Ready.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday.
I'm ready.
We'll figure it out.
That's going to be fun.
I got my big board set. Now I just need to trust the board like Brandon Beane. I've set my board, and now I'm just going to trust it.
Shockingly, I have not set my board. But you're not surprised by that at all. Yeah. I got ice cream instead. All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time on Buffalo Plus. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next time.